Vacations are meant to heal or at least distract. That was the only logic left in my mind when I stepped off the plane in Denpasar, dripping with fatigue and carrying a silence in my chest that had replaced words. After 23 months of caring for my father through his terminal illness, my identity had shrunk into a role I never applied for and never escaped. He passed away 2 weeks ago. My job had given me temporary leave. Friends offered condolences and distance. I had nothing to do but leave. Bali had always seemed beautiful in a distant, untouched way. Nature mixed with mystery, a culture deep enough to carry my grief without judging it. That was my assumption. That was my expectation. But assumptions become fragile in the face of the unknown. Because this place, this Airbnb, was not here to offer peace. It came with rules. Strange ones. And they were not suggestions. The booking had taken less than 3 minutes. $180 for 3 nights in a traditional Balinese villa on the north coast, far from the tourist crowds of Ubud or Kuta. The listing featured glowing sunsets behind palm trees, a private pool shaped like a crescent moon, and a modest temple near the garden. Reviews were limited but positive, all brief, and none newer than a year. My instincts twitched but never barked. I was too tired to be suspicious. My host's profile showed a single name, Naoman. No profile picture. The check-in instructions arrived within seconds of my confirmation. A 6-digit code. A GPS pin. A sentence. The villa is sacred ground. Respect it, and it will respect you. The drive from the airport to the village of Tijakula stretched past green rice terraces and winding roads lined with carved stone statues. My rented scooter buzzed like a weak insect on steep climbs. As I ascended into the mountains, the ocean retreated behind misted hills, and the air thickened with the scent of cloves, soil, and something older. By the time I reached the villa, the sun hovered low. Shadows were long and soft, and the forest whispered. The entrance gate was carved wood wrapped in red cloth. I parked beside a mossy stone wall and typed in the code on a weathered keypad. The gate clicked. I stepped inside. The villa stood still and perfect. Red-tiled roof, dark wood beams, and walls painted with murals of gods and beasts. The air smelled of frangipani flowers and incense, though no smoke trailed in sight. A single bamboo wind chime danced in the breeze, though I saw no wind move the leaves. Inside, the place was immaculate. A white linen bed. A desk near an open window. Bowls carved from coconut shells. A ceiling fan spun slowly above, though I had not turned it on. Beside the kitchen sink, a printed envelope waited with my name written in gold ink. Not a greeting, not a welcome, just my name, Reed. Inside the envelope, a typed letter rested on stiff parchment. Dear guest, welcome to Villa Surya in Tijakula. Please read and follow the following rules carefully. They are not customs. They are not culture. They are necessity. Rule 1. Do not remove, alter, or dispose of any offerings you see, even if they appear spoiled, overturned, or unnaturally preserved. Rule 2. If the gong outside the garden sounds after sunset, do not go outside. Rule 3. The pool may reflect more than the sky. If your reflection waves without you, leave the water immediately and remain inside until morning. Rule 4. Do not use the mirror in the hallway after 11 o'clock at night. Rule 5. If you hear laughter from the temple behind the villa, burn incense and place it on the offering stone. Then wait until the laughter stops. Rule 6. If you dream of the black dog, do not speak to it. Rule 7. Check out before noon on your final day. Not later. Never later. With protection, Naoman. The first I left. Nervously but still. I placed the letter on the desk and unpacked a bag that carried barely enough for the 3 days. T-shirts. A worn-out novel. Sunscreen I would not use. I stepped out to the pool. It shimmered blue and silent, surrounded by stone. I looked for a pool light switch but found none. As dusk thickened, the surrounding jungle grew loud with insects, frogs, and birds I could not name. Dinner was simple. Rice I boiled on a stove too modern for the rustic setting, with eggs and garlic from a woven basket beside the fridge. I ate on the patio, watching the horizon fade. The gong rang just as I placed my chopsticks down. Not once. Not twice. 3 times. The sound carried through the trees, low and distant, like a heartbeat under the earth. I froze. The rules echoed like fresh ink in my mind. I stepped backward into the villa, closed the sliding door, and locked it. My breath felt shallow. My chest remembered fear that my brain had not approved yet. Outside, something shuffled in the dark. Leaves rustled. The air went completely still. No breeze. No insects. Just silence. I stayed on the floor until midnight. The second morning rose golden and slow. Roosters crowed in the distance, and a woman walked past the villa with a basket balanced on her head, singing softly. I did not wave. I waited for her to vanish before moving. In the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection as I returned from the shower. It blinked. I did not. The towel slipped from my hand. My legs moved backward instinctively, almost slipping. My reflection stared back, neutral again, as if nothing had happened. But I had seen it. The blink had been slow, measured, like a wink from something that only looked like me. I covered the mirror with a towel, careful not to touch the glass. The pool water shimmered temptingly outside. The heat had grown unbearable by noon. I hesitated for a long time before swimming. I told myself the rules only warned about reflection, not the act of swimming itself. I eased in. Water hugged me cool and soft. The sun climbed. I drifted. My reflection waved. I did not. I bolted for the steps, slipping, pulling myself onto the stone ledge. I lay there gasping, staring at the pool until the sun began to set. My reflection did not move again. It had said enough. Laughter came just past 9 o'clock. Children. Or women. Or something in between. Too high. Too sharp. Echoing behind the villa from the temple cloaked in vines. I rushed to the offering stone. A bundle of incense sticks lay neatly nearby as if arranged freshly. I lit one. It flared with a suddenness that startled me. I placed it into the bowl beside the statue and waited. Laughter became giggles. Then sobbing. Then a whimper. Then silence. I locked every door and lay fully clothed in bed. The black dog appeared in the dream the third night. It stood at the foot of my bed in the dream version of the villa. It was large, regal, unmoving. Its eyes were fireless holes. Its mouth opened slightly, revealing no teeth, only fog. It did not bark. It only stared. In the dream, I felt the urge to speak, to ask it why I had come, what it wanted, if it knew my father, if this was grief taking a body. But I remembered the rule. Do not speak to it. So I remained silent. The dog nodded once, then turned and walked into the mirror. I woke up soaked in sweat at 4:40 a.m. At 5:15 a.m., I opened the door to the front patio. Morning mist curled over the lawn like rising smoke. The temple behind the villa looked smaller in the early light, more like a memory than a structure. My hands trembled, though I had done nothing yet. Something about the silence between 4 and 6 in this place felt charged, like waiting for an answer that never came. I brewed black tea in a tiny ceramic pot and sat outside. I considered leaving. The road back to Denpasar was long, and the scooter's brakes felt unreliable, but it was still a machine I could control, unlike this house. At 6:30, something knocked from inside the walls. Not loud, not constant, just one solid knock. Then another, the pause. Then 5 slow, deliberate knocks behind the kitchen shelves. The sound shifted from one wall to another, the rhythm too human, too intentional. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard nothing but my own shallow breath. Later that day, I searched every drawer for a manual or guidebook, something physical left by the host, but found only woven towels, dusty matches, and an old photograph in the back of the wardrobe. The photo was sepia-toned, curled at the corners. It showed a smiling couple beside the same villa, dressed in early 20th century clothing. Between them stood a girl in a ceremonial dress holding a long knife, eyes closed, mouth curved upward, but the smile was wrong. It stretched past comfort, past human joy. On the back of the photo, in neat handwriting read, "Those who break the final rule are not guests anymore." I placed it back, carefully. That evening, I sat near the pool as the sun bled down over the jungle. I tried not to look into the water. By 7 o'clock, the insects had gone silent. I stared at the distant mountains, letting the silence fill every corner of my chest. It felt like the villa was waiting. At some point, I blinked, and the clock on my phone read 8:55 p.m. I had lost nearly an hour. No memory, no nap, no distractions. I was seated in the same chair, same position, but my tea was cold, and my shirt was damp. I checked the hallway mirror. The towel covering it had fallen. I replaced it, this time with 2 towels and tape. At 10:58 p.m., I sat on the floor, staring at the digital clock's red numbers. 10:59, 10:59 and a half, 10:59 and 55 seconds, 11 o'clock. I did not move. I did not speak. At exactly 11 o'clock, the mirror's surface cracked. Not a full shatter, just a thin, jagged line like a split in time. A faint hiss escaped from behind the glass, like breath held for centuries. I went to bed without brushing my teeth. I did not look at my reflection again. On the morning of my final day, the clouds hung low like bruises. The air was thick, heavier than it had been all week. The frogs had gone silent, and the birds perched on power lines instead of trees, unmoving, watching. I prepared to leave early, well before noon. I packed, zipped my bag, and laid the envelope from Nyoman on top of my things. I intended to check out by 10 o'clock. But I made a mistake. A small one. I had forgotten my father's old prayer beads, left on the bedside table. I returned for them just as the clock turned 12 o'clock exactly. The wind outside stopped. The air inside shifted. The villa groaned. The walls breathed. And I heard the gong, but not from outside. It rang from the hallway. 3 chimes. Slow. What? I turned and saw the mirror. The towels had vanished. My reflection smiled. My reflection stood still, eyes locked with mine, but the smile widened as I stared. It raised one hand slowly, and I felt my own fingers twitch. It opened its mouth, revealing black gums and teeth made of smooth bone. "You stayed too long," it whispered, though I had not seen its lips move. The lights flickered. The room tilted. My knees buckled. The reflection stepped forward, out of the glass. It did not shatter. The mirror simply swallowed it like a door closing behind a thief. It now stood in the hallway with me. I ran. I bolted through the villa, heart exploding in my chest, shoulders slamming into walls. I reached the patio. The gate stood closed. Behind me, the air grew colder. I turned back. The villa was silent again. No footsteps. No shadow. Nothing following. But the reflection was gone. I had taken its place. I fled to the village on foot, abandoning my scooter. The jungle paths had changed, slightly rearranged, like puzzle pieces that refused to remember their original shape. Eventually, I reached a small warung, a traditional food stall, where an old woman with silver braids and cloudy eyes sat on a stool. She watched me approach, then shook her head gently. "You did not leave before noon." I nodded. "You saw the girl in the photo, yes?" I nodded again. She handed me a candle made of black wax. "Place this at the gate tonight. Leave your shoes facing outward. Sleep in the temple if you are brave. If you hear the dog speak, you must not answer." I did as she said. That night, I returned to the villa. The pool reflected a sky filled with stars I did not recognize. I walked barefoot to the temple at the back of the property. Its door, which had always been shut, now stood open. Inside, offerings had been placed in impossible patterns. Flowers spiraling in shapes only seen in nightmares, bones arranged to resemble hands and mouths. I sat inside, candle flickering beside me. The air was thick with ash and thyme. Then came the voice. Gentle, whispering. "You wanted peace, yes?" I said nothing. "You wanted to escape death. But death lives here." The candle flared, then died. The temple vanished. I now stood in the villa's bedroom. The bed was no longer empty. On the bed lay a version of me, breathing slowly, peacefully asleep. I stood over him. He did not wake. He looked rested. I felt the reflection behind me, watching. At dawn, I left the prayer beads and the black candle beside the pool. The pool water bubbled once, then stilled. In the hallway, The mirror remained shattered. I avoided my own face in the window. By 8:45 a.m., I had packed everything. The villa hummed quietly, like it was pleased. At 10:30 a.m., I received a message on my phone. Service had returned. Naoman, thank you. The villa accepts your stay. Please leave the key under the stone. We hope you return. I rode the scooter down the mountain. The road looked different. Longer. The birds watched me again, still and silent. By the time I reached the main highway, the sky had shifted to blue. Everything looked normal again. But I knew better. I never saw Naoman. I never found the original listing again. My Airbnb app had no history of my trip. But a month later, a package arrived at my apartment in Chicago. No return address. Inside was a photo. Sepia-toned. Me standing beside the villa, smiling. Beside me stood a girl in ceremonial dress, holding a bone knife. On the background, those who stay too long become part of the offering. As I placed the photo on my table, the wind chime outside began to move. The windows were closed. The gong rang 3 times. And I smiled.